So, let's talk about Donald Trump. Whether you're talking about real estate, reality TV, or, the presidency, his entire life has been this public spectacle. We're not just going to walk through a biography here. This is really a story about the power of a brand, the art of the comeback, and this relentless, lifelong obsession with being in the spotlight. And, nothing really captures his worldview better than his own words, right? This quote says it all. It's a story about attention. How do you get it? How do you keep it? And maybe most importantly, how do you use it to basically shape your own reality? To really get the man, you've got to understand this lifelong obsession he has with being the absolute center of the story. All right, so to really unpack the Trump brand, we've got to go back, way back. We're starting at the very beginning, in Queens, under the huge, almost mythological influence of his father, Fred Trump. This is where it all started. Not just the money, but the entire mindset. You see, the Trump empire, it wasn't built overnight, not by a long shot. It actually started with his grandparents coming over from Germany. Then his father, Fred, who is this incredibly driven guy, built his first house when he was just 20. He then just methodically built a fortune on government-subsidized housing. So by the time Donald joins the company, he's not starting from scratch. He's stepping into a ready-made real estate dynasty. And Fred didn't just pass down the business. He passed down this core philosophy of, total domination. He literally told his son he was raising him to be a king, a killer. Can you imagine? This idea that second place is for losers, that winning is the only thing that matters, that was just baked into Donald's DNA from day one. So, Fred didn't just pass down a mindset. He passed down a massive fortune. And he had this whole playbook of clever and, some would say questionable financial schemes to do it. We're talking trusts, special leases, so-called no-repayment loans. The whole system was designed to funnel millions from his empire straight to his kids, basically tax-free. And what was the result of all that? Well, look at this number. By the time he was just 29 years old, Donald Trump had already received what amounts to $9 million from his dad's business. So that whole self-made billionaire story he'd later build, it really started with a massive, massive head start. Okay, this next part is absolutely key to understanding his psychology. After seeing the guy who designed a major New York bridge get zero public credit for his work, Trump develops what he calls the sucker principle. And the idea is really simple. If you're not the one taking the credit, if you're not the star of the show, you're a fool, you're a sucker. And he decided right then and there he would never be anybody's sucker. So now he's got his father's money in his pocket and this deep-seated fear of being a sucker in his head. And what does he do? He makes a very deliberate move away from his father's world. He sets his sights on the big leagues, the high-stakes, high-glamour world of Manhattan. And he's got one single goal, to build the brand. And the difference between their two worlds? It couldn't be more night and day. Fred Trump's empire was built on solid, profitable, but pretty unglamorous, low-income housing out in the boroughs. Donald's ambition? It was all about glitz, glamour, luxury, status, everything that screamed the city. He wasn't just building buildings, he was building an image. And the ultimate expression of that brand? Trump Tower, of course. When it opened in 1983, this thing wasn't just another skyscraper. Come on. With its signature gold and marble look, that insane indoor waterfall, the penthouse on top, it was basically a physical temple dedicated to the Trump name. It just screamed excess and a new kind of celebrity. And man, did he know how to sell that brand. He completely understood, like he wrote in The Art of the Deal, that people want a fantasy. They want to believe in something that's the biggest and the best. So he used a little hyperbole, as he called it. He played the tabloids like a fiddle. He even called reporters himself, using fake names like John Barron, all to create this larger-than-life public persona. But that gilded brand, that whole empire, was about to face its biggest test yet. In the 1990s, the shiny image started to crack, and it led to this dramatic fall from grace. And then, a reinvention that would somehow make him more famous than ever before. By the early 90s, the whole thing was collapsing. His airline was failing, his casinos were going bankrupt, and he was staring down over $3 billion in debt. It was a spectacular fall. And guess who stepped in again to help stop the bleeding? Yep, his father, Fred. And then came the comeback. And it was all perfectly captured in two simple, iconic words. You're fired. This wasn't just some catchphrase from a TV show. This was the pivot. This was the moment that would completely redefine his public image for a whole new generation. And the success of The Apprentice, it was just staggering. We're talking over 20 million people tuning in every week. It completely rebooted his image. He went from being seen as the struggling, bankrupt real estate guy to the ultimate symbol of decisive, tell-it-like-it-is business success. It was an incredible rebranding. So, okay, he's conquered real estate. He's conquered reality TV. What's next? He sets his sights on the ultimate stage, politics. And this is where he would apply every single lesson he learned about branding, about spectacle, about media manipulation, and the results were, well, unbelievable.
He basically leveraged his TV fame directly into political relevance. How? Most famously by becoming the biggest champion of the birther conspiracy theory against President Obama. It was pure controversy, pure spectacle, tactics that let him completely dominate the political conversation long before he ever announced his campaign to make America great again.
His single term in office was just a whirlwind. It kicked off with that America First inaugural address, which right away signaled a huge shift in policy. From there, it was defined by the special counsel investigation into Russian interference, then his first impeachment over dealings with Ukraine. And of course, his final year in office was completely overshadowed by the nation's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And through all of it, his presidency was defined by a communication style that was just unlike anything we'd ever seen. These phrases became the soundtrack to those 4 years. Alternative facts. It's a witch hunt. No collusion, no obstruction. And the call was perfect.
And that brings us to today, to the unfinished chapter of the story. Because what happened after he left the White House? Well, it would be defined by events that were truly, truly without precedent in American history. Which really brings us to this fundamental question, right? What happens when a persona, a brand, an entire identity that's built on the idea that winning is everything actually loses? The answer to that question would set the stage for one of the most turbulent periods in modern American politics. And this timeline right here shows you exactly how that played out. In November 2020, he loses the election, but immediately claims it was rigged. This all leads to January 6, 2021, when a mob of his supporters storms the U.S. Capitol. And that, in turn, leads directly to his second impeachment, something that had never, ever happened to a U.S. president before. So, from a king and queens all the way to the White House and, well, whatever comes next, Donald Trump's life has been this masterclass in branding and spectacle. And as his own words here suggest, the one thing that has always remained constant is his incredible ability to command the stage and keep absolutely everyone guessing what the next act will be.